isn't the answer, could you please repeat the question? Hello, this is Pat Coakley, and it's my monthly podcast called Pod Snacks Art of the Diet, and it's all about the fun of maintaining a significant weight loss. Now, we all know it's not all fun, but I try to make it fun because I've been doing it for 10 years, and I have the attention span of a mayfly, so I can never do things quite the same way. So I hope you join me. All of the past episodes are available on www.artofthediet.com. Good morning, this is Pat Coakley, and this is episode 175 of Pod Snacks Art of the Diet. And today I'm going to talk about a novel that I just read and a New York Times article. And the New York Times article was titled, "The Diet Industrial Complex Got Me, and It Will Never Let Me Go." And then the little subtitle is, "I did not see the body positivity movement coming, comma, not at all." And it's by Sarah Miller. And I'll leave a link to the article on my website, www.artofthediet.com. And I read this article and I thought, wow, let me try to respond to Sarah as if she was in the room. She's a much younger woman than I am, I suspect, and there's hardly a day goes by, particularly if I'm in a group or of some sort, where somebody who remembers me from my other life, like 10 years ago, will say, "How do you maintain your weight loss?" like with disbelief. So I'm sort of used to giving advice, as you all know, but also not taking myself all that seriously, since really any day could happen and whatever I've been doing might just not appeal to me. I truly live with that possibility every day. And maybe it's more fear than possibility, so maybe that's what keeps me on track. But nonetheless, that was what I was going to focus in on entirely. Then I read this novel called Weather by Jenny Offal. And she had written another novel, 2014, 2015, called Department of Speculation, that I remember reading about and just never getting around to read. Well, I'm telling you, I'm going to read everything this girl writes. She also appears to be, to me, about the same age as Sarah Miller, who wrote this article. And I might be totally wrong, but just judging from the photo, and who knows. But anyway, the novel is short, has fragmentary chapters, so that you're not, this is not Tolstoy, you're not reading chapter upon chapter upon chapter. But despite being a short book or a smallish book, there is so much depth to this book. I was astonished. I wanted to write down something from every page of it. And one of her themes, which she's very familiar with, the character in the novel, who's a librarian, by the way, and she is very familiar with the world of survivalists, people who feel the end of the world is coming, who are preparing for it. And she and her husband are sort of preparing for it. And they do things around the house that help them prepare. They're talking about where they should relocate to based on what the science is saying about how this end of the world is going to unfold. So it's taken very seriously in the book. What I didn't realize was she is really tapping into something that exists outside her novel. And she used an example of some terms. She called them prepper terms. And prepper meaning people who are preparing for the apocalypse, for the end of the world. And she had acronyms for this group. And as a librarian, she was very familiar with all sorts of details that most of us are not familiar with. I thought it was part of the novel, but then I did some research and I realized she didn't even have to make this up. Now, let me give you an example. Here are, for real, prepper acronyms that you can go and verify on websites that address these needs. One of them is GOOD, G-O-O-D, and that means get out of Dodge. DTA, don't trust anyone. FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. FUD, I'm just totally taking that over. BSTS, better safe than sorry. WROL, without rule of law. YOYO, you're on your own. And then the last one, INCH, INCH. I'm never coming home. Now, I don't know why these tickle me so much. I know these are grave times and serious times, and climate change and the climate deniers that are ruling our current government right at the moment are stupefying to me. But these acronyms are gold. Yo-yo, you're on your own. All right. So I've decided to marry this acronym culture of approaching the apocalypse while I think about Sarah Miller's article in the New York Times about how she's been taken over by the diet industrial complex. So I made up my own acronym, and the letters are SHWAA, SHWAA, and it means, so here we are again, because anyone who has been on the diet roller coaster knows that inevitably you end up back at the same point, having to start again. Now, I also created another one that's entirely too long and not at all the kind of thing you could remember. But as I'm approaching the apocalypse, and let's face it, I'm 75, so who knows? I may go before the apocalypse, but I sort of live with that mortality more today than I ever did when I was Sarah Miller's age or Jenny Offel's age, or I suspect any of these survivalists. I don't know what their age group is. I think there are some older ones too, for sure. But this seems to be also some younger folks really are taking to this. Anyway, here's my other acronym, YSHTWYC, YSHTWYC. No, it's definitely not going to catch on. But anyway, as I approach my mortality or the apocalypse, either one, my acronym is, I still have to watch my carbs, okay? There's just no getting around it. Okay, so that brings me to Sarah Miller's article. And, it's so interesting because I know exactly how she feels in terms of her history, having been, chubby as a young girl and then losing weight and then regaining the weight and then losing the weight and then regaining the weight. And I'm just going to highlight some of the tonal sentences that she put in her article. And then I'm just going to have a little bit of advice for her. And one of the things she said about her first diet was that she was truly committed. She barely ever cheated. If she ate a cookie, she got back on her 3-speed bike and went down the hill and back up for each cookie that she went over. Although she said she was hungry all the time, she felt happy because she was losing weight. And the results, which happened fairly quickly for her, about 4 months, she couldn't believe this magical life she was suddenly living, where she could put her pants on without having to lie down and use all her strength to button and zip them. Now, we have all been there. She was there at a very early age. She talks about how shopping was such a much better experience as a thin girl as opposed to her chubby girl. And she talked about how people went crazy for her transformation. If she hadn't seen family friends for a while, all the adults made a point of saying, "Oh, you look terrific, just terrific." And she'd leave the room and she'd hear the word terrific being said and passed along like an hors d'oeuvre tray. And she also mentions that she met people who had said, quote, helpful things to her along the way, who, when they looked at her now, of course, met her eye, and she would meet their eye with a stare down, the likes of which terrified them, so they left the room. But she mentioned people that would just spontaneously comment on her body, and I think everyone who's had a weight problem, particularly a female, has known people like this. She remembers saying at some point at a family party that the adults got the lobsters while the kids had to eat chicken. And one friend of her parents said, "You don't look like you've missed too many good meals in your life." Now, this is a kid that this adult thinks this is an appropriate comment. And she makes an observation that he fell into a long list of people over her lifetime who've said nasty things, but became nicer to her when she lost the weight. And some were just so obvious and yet still demeaning, like, you're actually almost pretty now that you're not fat anymore. So the interesting thing for her was that every person she talked to was now two people. The one who was nice to me because I was thin, and the person who had been mean to me when I was fat. And she said that's also what was happening to her. She was two people. The fat person who felt like everyone was better than me and who was so scared to walk across a room or even stand up. And now the thin person who did not know how to manage the exhilaration of suddenly not feeling that way and of sometimes even feeling superior to other people. But she then comments that her thinness only lasted for a while. And even before it started reversing itself, she began to get comments from strangers about, you'd be really pretty if you just lost 10 pounds. In other words, people really thought she should lose some more weight and told her. So anyway, the long and the short of it is that she now notices that there are women who are walking down the street in outfits and owning these outfits that she in a million years would have been dissuaded from wearing by the people in the shops, by her mother, and ultimately by herself. She would not accept that wearing tight pants or zebra prints or whatever would be her sartorial choice when she was overweight. And she now looks at these women with a degree of envy, but also a degree of tenderness, she said, because she knows they've paid a price for this acceptance of their body. And she does sort of question whether they truly accept it, but she doesn't go on about that. But where she will separate herself from at least the rhetoric of the fat acceptance movement, which their essence is basically saying, I like myself the way I am. And just because you don't doesn't mean I have to share your view. But Sarah Miller goes, the bottom line is, and this isn't going to change, she said, I only like myself thin. And she concedes that it's occupied 50% of her thinking for her entire life, and that she just signed up once again for Weight Watchers. She's lost 8 pounds, but she wants to lose 15 more. And she just experienced having a perfect week of following the plan and then not losing. And she got very emotional about that, furious at herself, flashback to being 12 years old again, and knew that she'd been through all sorts of therapy and there wasn't anything that could talk her out of this thing, that she feels it's an intractable pattern that she has. And that's why she feels that the diet industrial complex is out to get her, got her, and is not going to let her go. So here's my advice for Sarah Miller, okay? And it's from a 75-year-old woman that had a very similar trajectory, up and down, up and down, up and down. And then at age 64, said, I've got to get serious about this. And it wasn't for looking good reasons. It was for knee reasons. My knees were killing me. And people 64 who have knee problems and are told that it's arthritis and whatnot, and the bottom line is you go as long as you can with shots and stuff, and but you're going to have knee replacements. And I remember thinking, wow, being 60 pounds overweight and doing a knee rehab, wow, that just cut through all the other motivations for losing weight that never really held me for long, like looking prettier or getting more compliments or whatever. That was fine. And yes, those things happen. But after a while, they don't mean very much, frankly. And you begin to feel their shallowness and not depth. But the knee pain And the prospect of being dependent on canes and walkers and whatnot, wow. I said to myself, so I can't do anything about the arthritis right now, or at least I didn't think I could. And I can't do anything about the roller coaster dieting that I've done for the 64 years prior, but I can do something about going forward. And so that was my commitment at 64. And I think it had the fervor and the intensity of what Sarah describes as her first diet. She was committed. But she was committed for reasons of wanting to fit in, wanting to look better, wanting people to get off her back about how she looked, of wanting people to shut up about her appearance. All of those things, which we all can relate to. But ultimately, to me, don't have traction. And since the roller coaster cycle creates physiologically an absolute treadmill of having to restart, that really isn't a question of will or self-control or whatever. People who study obesity can tell you the neuroscience of it, the hormones, the metabolic things. People who have had a weight issue for most of their life are going to have bodies that, when their bodies are thin, their physiological makeup really wants that weight back. And the body will do things to communicate, have a little more of this, have a little more of that, do a little less of that. That I'm not making up, because it was a sort of a revelation to me that it wasn't just a self-control issue, that whatever sustained my weight when it was lost 10 years ago, I have to eat less today in order to maintain the weight. There's no two ways around this. I have to eat less. But someone who was that natural weight without dieting could eat more. That is just the way of the world. And I've come to realize it, and sort of like a diabetic has to accept that this condition is not going away for the foreseeable future, and that the gift to them of insulin is the gift of managing their illness. And I think Sarah and a lot of folks wanted to go away, and they have experienced it so often. They know it's not going away. And like she says, the diet industrial complex got me and never going to let me go. And I want to say to Sarah, Sarah, thank God there's a diet industrial complex out there. There is a Weight Watchers there that you can go to. Just like an insulin dependent person has a needle and has a potion of insulin that they can use every day, you've got something that will help you maintain your weight or lose your 8 pounds or lose your 10 pounds. And their business model is based on people regaining that weight. Weight Watchers would not be in business if everyone who went in the doors to lose weight met their weight goal, left the business feeling happy, feeling like they met their goal, and never returned. I haven't been to Weight Watchers in quite a few years, but when I became a lifetime member and attended meetings for 8 years, they never made a cent from me because I maintained the 2 pound from my weight goal for 8 years. And so they never made a dollar. They're not in business to not make money. But they also realize, and I think not uncynically, that this is a problem that 95% of people don't really master it in their lifetime. They're continually going to be starting over. So you can feel like you are beset upon, that you have this, that you wish you didn't have it. You wish you could be like some of these fat acceptance people who say they like themselves the way they are. You can doubt that they really do, but take them on face value. If they like the way they are, they will progress in life, as I progressed in life, to a point where their knees are a problem, their back is a problem, their hips are a problem. There are consequences to being overweight. Forget about the cholesterol or all that sort of internal stuff. Your joints, when you get older, even as a thin person, get wearing down problems. Someone who's carrying around 50 plus more pounds on a regular basis and psychologically feels great about themselves, they are going to hit the physical barrier, and then they're going to say, wow, how do I like walking with a cane? How do I like trying to rehab with 70 more pounds than I would have if I had tried to get a hold of this problem in a realistic way? Not to throw your money into the folks who are saying, oh, you'd be so pretty if, but you're going to be more independent if you keep that weight off. Yes, you may get some compliments, but the bottom line is being able to be independent and walk around and manage yourself. Ask any diabetic. If they don't deal with their issues, they're in a world of trouble. And I honestly feel this is like a disease. And if you accept it as one that you've got, and don't go around looking at other people as if they are free of this problem and how lucky they are and blah, 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 blah. Hey, you mean to tell me there aren't some people that you look at and go, thank God I don't have their issues? Of course you do. And I think weight maintenance is one of them that, yes, if you need to, there are the national programs that can help you out and want to help you out and are well organized and have good meal plans. They can't do it for you, but they can hold your hand and they can give you some motivation if that's what you're lacking. So I want to say to Sarah, be grateful that you've got this Weight Watchers or this Jenny Craig or this, paleo this or Zumba that, whatever it is, you have something you can do about your problem. And in the end, as you're facing older age, I'm telling you, you are far better off. It is the best skin cream you will ever invest in, is to have less skin on your body and more ability to walk around. P.S. The knee issues that I had when I was 64 and 60 pounds overweight went away with the weight loss. Now, will I ultimately have knee problems? I probably will. But so do a lot of thin people. Because when you're treading the earth for 75 years, limbs and joints, they get used a lot. But I'm in better shape now to deal with the rehab of this than I would have been at 64. So that's my advice to Sarah. As you approach that door to Weight Watchers or to whatever diet plan or exercise plan or whatever that you are going to today, stand up straight. Be happy that it's there, that you can afford to do it, that there are ways to deal with your problem. And honestly, the investment in your health is not a trick, because instead of using health, I use independence. You are more independent if you take the weight off. You don't have to deal with the airplane issues. You don't have to deal with the clothing issues. There are just some issues that are taken off the table because as you age, let me tell you how many issues are going to come up and be on your plate, and you're not going to be able to take them off your plate. You got to deal with it. So that's my happy talk for today. So as I approach the apocalypse, I have my acronyms. I still have to watch my carbs. I'm going to have to work on that acronym because it just is too long. But anyway, with humor, I have recorded this podcast about some serious stuff, and I will leave the link to Sarah's article on my website, as well as a link to the glorious Jenny Offel and her book called Weather. All right, over and out.